Thanks. Good afternoon. This Committee of Adjustment meeting of Tuesday, May the 24th, 2022 will come to order. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of the committee, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we will go to our planner to announce the purpose of the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So tonight, the Committee of Adjustment is holding a public hearing in accordance with Section 45 of the Planning Act, as Article 1990 as amended, in order to consider 8 applications for relief from bylaw 2009-021 being the comprehensive zone plan of the Township of Salem. Prescribed notices of the public meeting were provided by prepaid first-class mail to all residents within 60-meter radius of the subject properties. Ministries and agencies were circulated via email. The subject properties were posted with a sign advertising tonight's public hearing. The notices were also available on the township's website. The notice circulation complies with the requirements of the Planning Act. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public hearing or make written submissions to the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn before any of the variances are granted, the person or public body may not be entitled to appeal the decision of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn on the proposed minor variances, must make written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn by mail, fax, email, or Dropbox. Going to the first application for tonight, it is A10-22. This is for 766 5 Spade Marina Lane. The relief being requested is to reduce the minimum high water setback from 30 meters to 22.6 meters to a dwelling, including a new breezeway and attached garage. It is on. Okay. The purpose of the application, as stated, is to permit the relocation of an 875 square foot dwelling, including the construction of a new 207 square foot breezeway and 126.7 square meter attached garage. As per my report, I find that the application meets the 4 tests of the minor variance, and I recommend the application for approval. In this application, given the relocation of the existing dwelling to the rear of the existing dwelling, an archaeological assessment appears to be warranted. We have, in this case, comments from Curve Lake First Nation recommending the archaeological assessment. We also have comments of no concern from the Port of Pine Ridge District School Board. Madam Chair, I believe I'll read the objection letter as when you asked for. Okay, so that's my comments in regard to that so far.
All right, thank you very much. Deputy Clerk, was there anyone that had registered in favor of this application?
Madam Chair, we have no one registered to speak on this application. We did ask all members of the public that wanted to participate to do so in writing, and our planner, Per Lundberg, does have all that communication. So we don't have any virtual participation for any of our applications.
Thank you very much. I will turn it back to Per because I understand that there is someone who has voiced an objection.
That's correct, Madam Chair. So this is from Egan Culvert and Andrew Davis. He wanted to attend tonight, but given the Zoom problems, he's unable to attend. So he dropped off a letter just earlier today, and so I'll read that into the record here. To the attention of Per Lundberg and the Committee of Adjustment, we are writing to you today to discuss our objection to the minor variance from Mr. Norman Phillips located at 766 5 Spade Marina Lane. We purchased the residence next door at 768 5 Spade Marina Lane in June of 2021. Since we moved in, we have witnessed Mr. Phillips preparing for and talking about the bill that we are discussing now. Upon review of the plan that he has submitted to the township for the build, and in comparison to the landscape stakes he currently has in place for the location of his build, we have several concerns. One of our concerns is the removal of all trees which border the two properties and create privacy as well as protection between the residences. Yes, these trees are on Mr. Phillips' property. However, they are so close to the property line that they are touching it in several locations. We are also concerned with the potential of him following through with his installation of a marine railway across the property. Mr. Phillips has removed some of the armor stone lining the shoreline and created a gap wide enough for his boat. He has created a ramp into the lake and covered it with screenings and crushed stone, and he plans to install the said marine railway from the water to the planned garage. Not only could this create a rather distinct eyesore, but it could also have certain environmental implications. Due to the angle which the property lines run and the variance distance requested, even though Mr. Phillips plans on building it at the allowed 1.2 meters from the property line, this garage will be impinging so closely into our front lawn that it would severely diminish our view and our property value if we are ever to sell it in the future. We would like to propose that if Mr. Phillips be allowed a variance to continue with his build, that variance distances be changed to approximately 26 to 27 meters, which would allow for both dwellings to be equal distance to the water. By moving Mr. Phillips' garage back so that it was even with the frontmost corner of our house, the yard would not be impinged, property while it is would not be harmed, and as much, and hopefully trees would be able to stay. We hope that we can come to an amicable solution to the situation with the help of the Committee of Adjustment, as talks with Mr. Phillips result in him turning his back and refusing to discuss any options. We look forward to hearing from you and appreciate all of your time. Sincerely, Dr. Egan Fulbert, and Andrew Davis.
Thank you. I will now turn to the committee. Are there any questions with regards to this application? Nita?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So some of the concerns that he's raised with regards to the marine railway, the proximity of the garage to the property lines, the trees, can those things be addressed through the Committee of Adjustment process, or how would we normally have handled that?
Thank you for the question. So through you, Madam Chair. So most of these concerns that he's outlined here are not within the purview of the Committee of Adjustment. The marine railway would be Trent Severn Waterway issue as well. There are no details at this present time regarding any marine railway, so I'm not aware of this structure at all at this point in time. Yeah, regardless, it's not a committee concern to the objections raised in this letter.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other question? No? Move on to Donna.
Thank you. Sorry. Through you to Pear. The concern about the garage being relocated or moved back, has this been discussed with the applicant, or do you think that would be possible to make things more amenable?
So through you, Madam Chair, again, from the township's perspective and through our zoning bylaw perspective, moving the current residents is moving significantly towards the roadside away from the water. So it is a significant improvement to in compliance with our zoning bylaw. Mr. Davis was in earlier today, and I suggested to him that the process for him to undertake, if he would like to see it move back a little further, is to have a discussion with his neighbor and see if he would be amenable to doing that. And then if so, the landowner could come to us and propose that change.
Doesn't sound like that's possible, though. In his letter, he said the man won't talk to him.
So, agreed.
I guess we can't do anything about that.
No.
Can't make people talk. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next application, A1722, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next application, A17-22. This is for 855 Shimon View Drive. This is for a permit for the construction of approximately 550 square foot open deck. The relief requested is to reduce the minimum high water mark from 30 meters to 12.1 meters. In accordance with my report, I find that The application meets the four tests of a minor variance, and I do recommend this application for approval. This deck is going to be further away than their existing deck from the existing residence. So in that case, I find that an archaeological assessment appears to be warranted. We do have comments from the Fourth of Pine Ridge District School Board and the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority on this application. Fourth of Pine Ridge District School Board has no concern, and the Conservation Authority is stating that a permit is required from them as well as a planting plan. Those are been incorporated into the conditions of approval. Those are my comments on that application.
Thank you very much. Committee, we have no one in favor or against for this application. Are there any questions? Donna?
Yes, through you to pair. The terminology open deck, is that the same as when Jeanette used to write non-permanent deck? The very same thing?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. That's correct. Yeah, it's designed to, open deck is meant to indicate a deck with no roof structure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions, so we'll move on to A1922, please.
Moving on to A19-22, this is for 314 Fife Avenue. This is for the construction of a new 1,181.9 square foot dwelling and a 575.3 square foot open deck. The reliefs being requested are to reduce the minimum high water mark from 30 meters to 21.2 meters to a new dwelling, and to reduce the minimum high water mark setback from 30 meters to 16.3 meters to an open deck. Through my report, I find that this application meets the four tests of a minor variance, and I do recommend the application for approval. In this case, the proposed dwelling is largely being placed on the foundation of the existing structure, and therefore an archaeological assessment does not appear to be warranted. In this case, we have comments from the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority stating that a permit is required, a planting plan, and sedimentation erosion control. Those are incorporated as conditions of approval, and we have no concern from the Fourth of Pine Ridge District School Board.
Thank you. Again, there is no one that has registered against or for this application. Are there any questions from the committee? Yes.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I believe there are some comments for this application.
Okay.
So yes, so Madam Chair, there's been some letters of support in this case for this application. The applicant wanted to know that they are obviously in support of their application. The agent, Ken Curry, also wanted to attend tonight in support of the application. We also have a letter from a neighbor, Anna Marie Castelli, that is also wanted to attend and state her support for this application, as well as another neighbor, David Carmichael, also wanted to attend tonight, but is unable to, just to state his support for the application.
All right. Thank you very much. So committee, are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to A2022, please.
Moving on to A20-22. This is for 670 Hatton Avenue. This is for construction of a new 2,508 square foot dwelling, including a 712 square foot garage and sorry, I didn't put the conversion here, but a 7.44 square meter covered front entry, as well as a 613.4 square foot open deck. As per my report, I find that the application meets the four tests of a minor variance, and I do recommend this application for approval. Again, an archaeological assessment appears to be warranted in this case just because of the extent of the development beyond the footprint of the original cottage. We have comments from the Economy Region Conservation Authority and North Pine Ridge District School Board. The North Pine Ridge District School Board has no concern, and the Conservation Authority is requiring a planting plan, permits, and sedimentation and erosion control during construction. These have been incorporated into the decisions for the conditions of approval. Comments on this application?
Thank you. And there was no one in favor or opposed to this application. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to A2122, please.
So this is 821-22. This is for 2402 Victoria Springs Lane East. This application is for the construction of a new 795 square foot dwelling, including a 43.7 square foot front open deck and 192 square foot side yard open deck. So it's just another deck over to the side of the house. The relief being requested in this case are to reduce the minimum high water mark setback from 30 meters to 17.3 meters to a new dwelling, including a new front open deck, to reduce the minimum high water mark setback from 30 meters to 13.1 meters to a new open deck on the side yard, to reduce the front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 2.18 meters from the edge of a gravel roadway to a new dwelling, and to reduce the front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 1.52 meters from the edge of a gravel roadway to a new front open deck. As per the report, I find that the application meets the 4 tests of the minor variance, and I do recommend the application for approval. We have comments from Conservation Authority, once again recommending or requiring a planting plan, orca permit, and sedimentation and erosion control during construction, which are incorporated into the conditions of approval, and the North Pine Ridge District School Board has no concern. This one, just for the committee's awareness, this is a vacant lot of record. So it's got a steep slope, this particular property. So the location of this proposed dwelling is the most suitable, given the slope on the property, and that's why the proposed dwelling is as close as it is to the water. My comments on that particular application.
Okay, thank you. There was no one for or against this application. Are there any questions from the committee? Anita?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if I'm reading this correctly, the size of the actual dwelling is 790 square feet. Is that sort of the smallest that's allowed in the township in terms of square footage?
Yes. Version there on that, but yeah, that would be on the small side there for sure.
I know some of the applications we get are for like humongous buildings. So in a way, it's kind of nice that people are building something that's under 800 square feet and probably going to be quite happy.
Yeah. The dwelling is on the smaller side on this property too, because it's the lot is a little smaller, so you can't really squeeze a much larger home in on this particular lot.
Donna?
Through you to Pear. So we no longer have that rule or bylaw or whatever that a dwelling has to be 1,200 square feet, because it used to be the case.
I hope we didn't miss a setback requirement. Just look at my table here. Oh, okay. So it's a 2-story dwelling. So yes, I remember this now, reviewing this with the applicant. So we do have that requirement of 100 square meters that has the total, but the two levels together meet the minimum floor area requirement, even though the base floor doesn't. Right?
Okay, and I think we've discussed that we're considering changing that. I know you guys are busy with lots of new things, but you are considering changing the 1,200 square feet because tiny homes, like Anita said, are becoming popular.
Yeah, so through your Madam Chair, I believe through the next comprehensive zoning bylaw update, we'll be looking at square footage requirements in all our zones to deal with tiny homes and such, right?
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next one.
I lost track here. We're at 22, right?
2222.
Very good. So the next application is A22-22. This is for 2797 Lakefield Road. This is for construction of a new 2,400 square foot detached garage. The relief being requested is to increase the height of the detached garage from 4 meters to 7 meters. Again, I find that the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I do recommend this one for approval. We have comments of no concern from the Conservation Authority on this one, and no permits required from them as well. And the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board has no concern. In this particular case, I am recommending an archaeological assessment because it's near a water body, a small stream, and it is in it. The new garage is located in an undisturbed portion of the subject lands. That is my comments on that particular application.
Okay, thank you. And there's no one in favor or against for this application. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to A2322, please.
So A23-22, this is for 1831 6th line. This is also for the construction of a 2,400 square foot detached garage. And the relief being requested here is to increase the maximum height of the detached garage similarly from 4 meters to 7 meters, and also to increase the maximum accessory lot coverage from 5% to 6.1%. I find that the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I do recommend this application for approval as well. In this case, we have comments from the Tonabee Region Conservation Authority. They have no concern and no permits required. We also have comments from the Ministry of Transportation because they're in the subject lands are in proximity to the proposed Peterborough Bypass. So they will need MTO permits in addition to municipal permits for the construction of this garage. That is a condition of the minor variance. And we have no concern from the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board. And again, the subject property is in proximity to a nearby stream, so an archaeological assessment appears to be required given that this site, the garage is also going in an undisturbed portion of the subject property. Those are my comments on that application.
Thank you. Again, there's no one in favor or against that is, here's the delegation committee. Any questions? Anita?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just, what tweaked with me was this proposed Peterborough bypass. That's not the same as the Bridge North bypass. No, so this Peterborough bypass, is it on like the county official plan or something? Or is it something they're thinking about, talking about?
Through you, Madam Chair. So I believe, yeah, that Peterborough bypass is on the official plan, but it's a planned bypass corridor that's been on the books since the 1970s, and whether it ever goes through or not is who knows, but because it is MTO lands and it's part of their regulated area, it invokes transportation or MTO permit requirements.
Donna?
Through you to pair. So on that same topic, the Ministry of Transportation permit, does that just mean that they will look at his property and tell him where he can put an entrance? Is that?
So through you, Madam Chair, no, to my understanding, no, it's similar to a municipal building permit. He actually has to have a permit for construction on the subject lands because he's within an influence area of that Peterborough bypass.
So he may not get his building permit.
Well, through you, Madam Chair, I doubt that's the case. I think MTO will issue their permit. It's just that he'll need that permit before the municipal building permit, given that MTO regulation is applicable law, I understand, under the Building Code Act.
Okay, thank you.
No other questions. We'll move on to A2422, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is A24-22. This is for 2731 Tedford Drive. this case, this is for the construction of the new 918 square foot detached garage. The release being requested are to increase the height of a detached garage from 4 meters to 6.06 meters, to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 2.77 meters to a garage, and to reduce the sum of the applicable front yard setback from 10 meters from the right of way plus the municipal road from 17.5 meters to 12.77 meters. Again, I find, as per my report, that the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I do recommend the application for approval. In this case, we have Conservation Authority comments stating that a planting plan and orca permits are required. Those have been built into the conditions of minor variance approval, and the Cork Pine Ridge District School Board has no concern with this application. Those are my comments on that particular application.
Thank you. No one has registered to speak in favor of or against this application. Any questions from the committee?
So, yeah, so I just have a letter here again from the agent
Okay.
for the applicant. They just wanted, they weren't also planning to attend tonight, but as they weren't, they did send in an email. Just, I'll read it out because there's a bit of content here. So we hope you're all safe and sound after the storm. For the minor variance for Doug Lugenhuck at 2731 Tedford Drive, we have produced 12 versions to try and comply with as many moving parts as possible with this project for the minor variance application. The client is making this his permanent home with his family, a new blended family, and they need to have the garage and require a lot of storage as they are going from 2 homes to 1 and a family of 3 to a family of 7. We would like to note that the client is 6'9" tall, and being a chiropractor, he pays close attention to ergonomic design and how that relays with storage in the 2nd story. This location is the only possible functioning space on the property where it does not interfere with hydro lines, well, septic, or current 1-story house. Please do not hesitate to call if you have any questions. Thank you, Krista. And that's from the person at Key Design, that's the agent for the applicant.
Thank you. So are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, I need someone to move. Jerry, Donna, all in favor? Those applications are carried. I need someone to move the minutes. Andy and Anita, all in favor? It's carried, thank you. And a motion to adjourn. Jerry and Donna, all in favor? That's carried. Our next meeting is June 28th, 2022. Council meeting will begin at 6 o'clock. Thank you.
Just waiting for 6. Good evening, colleagues. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is our regular council meeting for Tuesday, May the 24th. And I'll begin with our land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga and Aztec. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. I'd also like to ask us to observe a moment of silent reflection so the council staff and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. We have circulated the agenda. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest on the items on the agenda? Not seeing any. Just before I move to minutes, with council's indulgence, I'm going to ask our CAO to provide an update on the township's response to the storm.
For sure. Thanks very much. So I think the May 2-4 weekend went not the way anybody was anticipating or hoping when they went home on Friday afternoon. So certainly it's been a very busy and challenging time for lots of people, residents and our staff and employees alike. I'd just like to take a moment to thank all the folks on our team who were out most of the weekend. So obviously our fire department, our Public Works Department, our senior management and admin staff, and some finance staff, and our public parks and recreation staff. Again, another example of their commitment and dedication and their hard work. They were out trying to help the community all through the weekend. So sincere thanks to all those folks who gave their weekend up to help the community. Certainly with the initial incident, the initial storm, our fire department was very busy with initial response. Trying to get out to help people with their needs. There was lots of communication challenges, so they had to do that in the midst of all those communication challenges, but still did get the job done, and that lasted for well into Sunday. I'd say on Monday calls started to return more to normal. Today they're more to normal, but for sure was a very challenging time for the department. Likewise, the Public Works Department has been out since Saturday trying to clear up trees and debris from our roadways, first making sure that roadways were accessible for people. And then we're getting back now to just clean up in some areas where there's lots of trees and brush on the kind of the road edges. Delays in some areas to get roads actually cleared because wherever there were hydro lines involved, we weren't able to touch them until hydro comes and clears those areas. We did have several of those situations in Lakefield. We're hopeful that they will be able to get to that tomorrow, is our hope based on where Hydro 1 gets at through the day today and beginning tomorrow. Certainly, it will take some time to finish that cleanup, but I think they're making their way around quite well. Certainly, our Parks and Rec department was out as well, cleared up hazards on trails and in parks, and just going around and doing general cleanup once that's completed as well. We were able to get the landfill site opened up yesterday. Certainly, there were challenges there. There's no power, and we did have hydro lines across the laneway, so we had to deal with those issues. But we're able to get that open as of yesterday at noon to help folks get their storm debris, brush, food that's been, no longer any good, other storm debris brought into the landfill at no charge. Folks were very grateful for that, and they've been quite steady. They were steady yesterday and have been steady again today. And our residents have been quite thankful for us getting that up and going for them. of course, our managers and it's some of our min team and our finance staff were certainly into just support operations and to get those communications going out to the public, getting our messaging out and, sharing messaging from other organizations and agencies like the health unit around food safety and that sort of thing. So very active in all of those functions. So just really appreciative for all the efforts that everybody made over the weekend. It was just, again, as I said, another great example of the dedication and teamwork of our staff. Today, our municipal office was fully open. Everybody was in. We have power, we have internet. We were basically able to operate as per normal. Staff were having lots of inquiries come in, a lot for just general information, general questions. So they were managing all of those. Staff very quickly developed a really cool database to help us track our service requests. And I think Angie has a few stats on those that she's worked through. So I'll let her go over those with you so I don't have to interpret her scribble.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so we've had 47 requests for service. So this is just the request for service. There's been a lot of other phone calls, people asking about, is a landfill open? Is there a charge for brush? So we're not tracking those types of requests. There are, of those 47, 8 are from Ennismore, 19 are from Smith, and 19 are from Lakefield. Some of those requests are things that we've noted ourselves, if our staff have been around, or our fire service. The majority of them, though, are coming from our residents reporting, brush or a tree down, or maybe a tree against a hydro pole, spoiled food, just kind of the typical questions that you would expect. So the service requests are a great way where it's all a database. We can create a report, which then gets generated. We can send that out with our public works crews, and they can kind of focus in on priority areas. And as things are taken care of, then we can just check it off. So it's worked really well. And again, as Janice mentioned, we were able to get that pulled together in large part because of the efforts of Erica Kavanaugh in our finance department. She did a lot of work over the weekend to get that set up.
Great, thanks, Ange. Also today, the library did open in Bridgenorth. We had power throughout in Bridgenorth, as everybody knows. It's been a great attraction over the weekend, but today our library was able to open, and we're able to offer a place for folks who needed to charge devices. They could go there to charge their devices. So I really didn't hear how popular that spot was, but I'm sure we'll get an update on that in the future as well. We are collecting info from the public, as well as keeping track of every penny that we spend to make sure that we can provide the information that's going to help support the province's decision to activate their funding programs that they have available. So we're collecting that information, and we'll get that sent off. Certainly, we are aware that H1 Hydro One staff are out in force. They have support from other provinces. They have support from the US. So they're out there in full force doing their best to get power restored. While we don't have estimated time of arrival for full power to be back on, we are getting more and more reports of power coming on in areas throughout the township. So there is definitely a lot of progress being made. So I think that's very positive. So I think it's been obviously very challenging, but I think we've managed well with our resources and continue to do so. It will take some time to complete the cleanup. We will continue to monitor how things are going and assess our needs on a day-to-day basis. The other thing I would mention, of course, is that we appreciate the efforts of the community. The community has, as always, they come together to support one another, to take care of one another. Just Angie had a story about all the brush on Frankish Court was just removed by a couple of folks who had some time on their holiday Monday. So things like that, people are out there helping us, helping each other, and that's just great. That's what this community is all about. So I'll leave it with that, and again, just a big shout out and thanks to all of our staff for all they've done.
Well, thank you very much, Janice. And if I could say on behalf of council to thank you, your team, and everybody that's worked so hard, our fire department, our public works, all the administrative staff, and the whole team that have worked hard. I also want to echo your comments about our community. It's been a tremendous effort and support that neighbors have provided to neighbors. It really reflects what is special about our community. And it is through those kinds of efforts that we'll get to the other side. So to all the community members out there, a great deal of thanks to them as well. I'd also like to take a moment to offer our collective condolences. As folks are aware, we lost a resident, a Southern resident in the storm. So our condolences go to the family and everybody else who's affected by that untimely passing. So we appreciate the update, Janice. I don't know if council members may have a question. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, through you. Janice, when we had the 100-year rainstorm or whatever year that was, we had to declare a state of emergency in order to get provincial money. Has that changed now?
Yes, there is no requirement for an emergency declaration for either the municipal financial support program or the support program that's available for residents. It's completely activated and administered by the province of Ontario.
Okay,
So we are collecting information to provide to the province to let them know what our situation is, to help them make that decision for this area.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. We'll move on to the minutes. We have the minutes of May the 10th up for discussion. And I think the deputy mayor has a observation question.
Yes, in the motion that was made in these minutes for the short-term rentals, moved by Councillor Locke and I seconded it. The wording in this motion is not what the motion was. And I don't know whether when we make a motion, I think it should be shown exactly the wording that we provide. And in this instance, that didn't happen. And I'm not sure if we should be amending it to say what we said or what to do. Mr. Mayor, I'm kind of.
Yeah, just to clarify. So if you go to the third paragraph of the minutes of that motion, there's a comment essentially on what council's motion was. Right. So what the deputy mayor is saying is that the motion should say what the motion that was passed. There is a legitimate comment from staff, which is, by the way, one section of your motion was redundant because we're already doing it. I think is what that third paragraph was trying to say. But that's not what the deputy mayor is pointing out, is that council did not put in its motion the wording that council be advised that the current bylaw. That wasn't what council said, but it's a legitimate observation, right? No, because that part of our motion, because we misunderstood what the situation was in fact redundant. But what the deputy mayor is saying is that the motion should be what the motion was, and then the comment should come after that, which is, yeah, but just so that you know, we were already doing that which you asked us to do. So it's more an issue of format than it is of substance. Because at the end of the day, what's happening is exactly what council asked to have happen. So I don't know if that clarifies it at all.
Yeah, so because the motion really wasn't applicable, I tried to clarify it in the minutes. So we can certainly, if council wishes to, if the deputy mayor wanted to pass a motion to make a clarification on that, you could do that. Yep.
I think going forward, when we pass a motion, it should be that motion and there shouldn't be additional information encompassed in the motion. I understand why it was done, but I don't think it's proper. And I don't know whether I have to pass a motion to take it out or just leave it the way it is. I mean, it's understandable what is in there. It's just, I think, improper.
So if you want, you could pass a motion to remove that third bullet if you wish to. And I understand your point. I will say in my time that I've been here, oftentimes when we craft a motion, sometimes when it's verbal, we do our best to formulate it based on the discussion from council.
Mhm.
It doesn't, what lands in the minutes quite, doesn't always quite reflect the exact wording that was verbalized at the meeting. We do try to do our best to make sure that we're formulating the resolution to reflect what council's intention was. So I apologize for that, but if you would like, you can pass a motion to remove that bullet entirely, just so that it's on the record that it really wasn't needed because we're already doing that.
Mhm. I understand. All right, well, I'll move the motion that we take that paragraph out of the motion.
Seconded by Anita. All those in favor? Carried. Just to clarify the point though, what council wanted is in fact is what's happening, just so that everybody understands that. So there is no, it doesn't cycle back to zero. There's no reset, right? And if I could, Robert, that's correct, right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. If there has been no occurrence for greater than, like, for a 12-month period, then it would reset. But if there's ongoing complaints, as long as there's not a break of over a year between those complaints, the protocol will remain in effect.
Okay, so let me just clarify this. So if you were assessed under this in 2022, right? And in 2023, you did it again, it would escalate on you. You'd have that higher. But if you had something happen in 2022, you got through all of 2023 without any problems, in 2024 is when it would reset.
It would reset 366 days after the last offense.
So it's like your, not that anybody here would ever have been caught up like this, but it's like your demerit points. After a certain amount of time, you get you get them back, right? So it's the same sort of approach I would take, right? Okay, which I think is what council didn't want to have is just because the calendar year flipped over, you automatically got set back to zero. That's not the case. Okay. But I think we're all in the same place. It's just a matter of getting it in writing. So, okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for helping out on that. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for pointing that out. Okay. I asked for discussion on the minutes, but I think we just had one. So we'll move on to.
We need to
Oh,
move
we
the
have to
minutes.
actually move the minutes as amended. So, yes, thank you, Anita and Donna. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Any deputations? I do not believe we have any deputations. Are there any questions, Madam Clerk? There are no questions. So that would take us to our municipal officers and staff report. And we have Lane back with asset management.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to provide this update report on asset management. Builds on the presentation that was at the May 10th regular meeting. So I'll just take a few moments to go through the key points in the report, and do want to draw council's attention to the links at the end of the report. The policy, which was approved in 2019, and then the actual asset management regulation. Both of those links contain important information and really the basis upon which we are building our plan. So the report touches on a number of heading areas there, and I'll just go through those briefly. Interrelated plans. So the Selwyn approved policy requires that our asset management plan have regard for a number of other interrelated plans. And of course, the strategic plan for Selwyn is the overarching document but there are a number of other specific plans that also will affect the asset management plan. One such plan is the Climate Change Action Plan. It's a great example of another plan. And when we get into underground infrastructure in particular, severe weather events have the potential to dramatically affect that infrastructure and cause significant surface damage as well. So that's the type of plan that if we have regard for that, it can impact on the asset management plan. Of course, the ultimate goal here is that all of these documents will be updated in an appropriate sequence so that they can stand on their own, but also feed into these other complementary plans. And the report provides some examples of that. Also, with respect to data collection, which is a key part of the plan, we recognize and are developing a table that clearly shows where there are gaps in information. And so where those gaps exist or where the confidence in our data is less than ideal. So if the data doesn't have a high level of completeness, or if the confidence levels are lower, then the risk is higher, and therefore capital investments need to be tempered as well. So it underlines really the fact that the plan continues to grow and evolve and will be improved over time. Pretty much the day after any plan is approved, you're going to have better data and a higher confidence in that data. So we do condition ratings and things like that. Parts of our plan will be very robust because we have condition ratings and we actually know, and we're not just doing how many years are left in the useful life. So some of the plans, if you have 50 years, 25-year useful life, you could look at it and say, okay, we're about 50-50 here. We're pretty medium confidence level. In some instances, we may have assets which are very close to or past their useful life, but because we have had a condition rating and we see that they're in excellent condition, then we may actually have a higher confidence level in that. With respect to financial strategy, based on the approach that we're using in Selwyn, the longer term financial strategy won't be required until 2025. But in the 2022 plan, we will be outlining various funding mechanisms that we have used and continue to use in our capital budgeting. Of course, we do need to provide current replacement values, and we'll outline that. That will help us identify at a higher level any type of infrastructure deficit that we have or a gap. But we don't have to necessarily outline how we are going to address those infrastructure deficits at this point in time. Another key component out of the regulation are maintenance techniques. The plan will include various maintenance techniques and how these activities affect the useful life of the asset. And if we were to use roads as an example in the report, our engineers outline a myriad of different preservation techniques in our roads needs study. And I can think of probably on an asphalt surface, probably close to a dozen. In Selwyn, we haven't typically used all of those. So the asset management plan will take that into account and have regard for the maintenance techniques that we use here. And then over the longer term, as we monitor our asset condition, we may want to increase the number of techniques that we use. And so crack sealing is probably one of the best examples. It is used by many engineers and many municipalities. It hasn't been a technique that we have used here in the past. But it is something that since we haven't actively implemented it, it won't be part of the initial plan. We'll take a look at that down the road maybe. And with respect to levels of service, there was some activity and comments on that at the last council meeting. So I just included table 4 on roads to give council an idea of the 2 types of service levels that are required in this version of the plan.
Okay. Yeah.
Would our internet still be on, or does that cut everything off?
It'll come back on. Yeah, she's gonna have to reset maybe the recording. Yeah.
Scared me. The hydro went off at Empress on Saturday afternoon. It had gone little flickers.
We're live and good to go. Yeah.
Okay, Lane, go ahead.
Sure, okay, so I'll carry on under levels of service. So we included table 4 from the regulation. So you can see the one side of the table actually shows community levels of service. And so we'll be using GIS maps and photos, visuals, things like that to give the community an idea of not only where, say, our road network is, the type of road we have, but also what maybe an excellent service would look like versus a very poor service, those such types of things. And then we are also required to include technical levels of service as well, and that's where we'll get into some of our data from the roads needs study and taking a look at that. So in terms of the next report, Council will be presented with a complete draft section of the plan, likely the road section, because we anticipate by that point we'll have our full data set back on the roads needs study. It should provide Council with a good example of what a typical asset category, how it's formatted, and what the visuals are going to be like in the report. So that should be at the June 7th meeting. And of course, this process of outlining the last meeting, starting with the presentation, and then a meeting, or rather a report at every meeting leading up to June 28th is part of the regulations idea of supporting public awareness, as yet another report is included in the public agenda and then discussed at an open public meeting. So I can say to Council at this point, the asset management plan creation is proceeding according to schedule, and that's the attachment to the report. Look forward to presenting some additional information at the next meeting, and be prepared to answer any questions that Council may have.
Thank you, Lane. Council, questions to Lane? Lane, just a general question. The good job in the past legislative mandate of regularly investing in its infrastructure. That's been a hallmark of Selwyn for a large number of years that we've been making those kinds of investments. So do you expect, and it's a little bit of an unfair question, but do you anticipate any surprises from the plan that comes forward?
I guess there's some of the things that have come out of the plan, and maybe the biggest surprise, if we were looking at it from that perspective, would be bridges and culverts. Ever since I've been involved in municipal government, we have said we're not responsible for bridges and culverts. That's a county responsibility. And in Peterborough County, any structure greater than 6 meters is the county responsibility. And any structure smaller than 3 meters is not classified as a bridge or culvert. But in discussions and in having to go through this process, discussions with the county, we recognize that there is a gap between the 3-meter structure and the 6-meter structure, and that is our responsibility. So at this point, we have reviewed our bridges and culverts that we know about, some historical data, and at this point, I think we have identified 6 or 7 structures, which would be our responsibility. And so that was, to me, was definitely a surprise. To our manager of public works, I know it was. And so there's very, say not strict, but very clear guidelines about how a bridge and a structure is reviewed. And in terms of timing, it's required that it's reviewed every 2 years. So that is definitely an area of maintenance and review that we'll have to incorporate into the budget. And then, of course, taking a look at those 6 or 7 structures that we're going to have to identify. If any of those are in poor condition, then once again, that would be a bit of a surprise. And the other aspect of that is you look at the importance of a bridge or structure and the risk that creates for not only the ratepayers, but the municipality as well. So I guess in direct response to what was a surprise, that would have been a surprise. And if we hadn't had to go through this exercise, we may not have found that at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. And so at our special meeting, we'll see a first draft of a full asset management plan, right?
Yeah, so at the next meeting, I hope to have a full draft of a section of it, being the road section. It'll outline really from start to finish what that section would look like. That would be on the 7th, and then on the 15th, there'd be a full draft of the plan, and that gives council about a week and a half before the final plan comes back. Hopefully at that special meeting, we'll have a chance to review it in more detail and respond to questions and see what council likes about it, what it doesn't like about it. And in some instances, we're bound to follow a format under the regulation, but in other instances, we do have some flexibility.
Well, thank you very much, Lane, and thanks for all the work that you're doing on this. I think we need a motion to receive that report from Anita, and seconded by Jerry. All those in favor? Jerry. Okay, we are at consent items. Does anybody want to pull a consent item? Donna?
Yes, 5A.
I'd also like to pull 5A. Anybody else? Yes, Anita.
Correspondence report 6A1.
6A1. Right, okay. Anything else? Hey, not seeing any. Donna, go ahead on the Ontario Land Tribunal decision.
Right, thank you very much. I have asked some of these questions to Robert and Pear already this evening, but some of these things I'd still like to put in the public record. On page 7, number 14, it was reported in error that Mr. Lundberg took carriage of the file for the county and Ms. Warren took carriage for the file for the township. The men tell me that doesn't really matter, but it is an error. So I just wonder if they've made any other errors. Number 48, I didn't ask this to the men. It says the parties are directed to provide counties of the draft instruments for the tribunal's review and approved within 30 days of the issuance of this order. The tribunal will withhold its final order. So does that mean 47 and 48, they're both, that's both of them. So does that mean that the order isn't definite yet?
So through you, your worship. So the direction is simply that this order requires both parties, the county and the township, to come up with the form of the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment wording together with the appellant side. So that's the process we're undertaking. I believe if you look at the decision, there's a appendix A, attachment A and attachment 2. And so one dealing with the official plan amendment, the other one dealing with the zoning amendment. So that wording has to be copied into sort of our standard zoning amendment format, right? So that's how it happened. It's currently being reviewed by Aird and Bearless as counsel for the township. Once our lawyer is happy with it, it'll be forwarded to the appellant side for review. And once we're happy with that form of wording and the format, it'll be sent to the tribunal, who will then issue their final order that they're satisfied that format meets the requirements outlined in the attachment 1 and attachment 2.
Okay, thank you. And will there be a potential minor variance on this property? Or could there be?
So through your worship, in review of the site plan as it's been provided to us with the format of the zoning amendment, we've recognized that there's likely going to be a minor variance required for the front yard setback.
Thank you. I think those were all my questions.
My question on the same matter, but a more general question. The tribunal, when you put it all together, it says the township was in error. Do we agree with that?
I'm not sure I follow that we were in error.
It says that we did not deal with the application in a timely manner, is what it is what they ruled.
So, yeah. So in all fairness, your worship, as outlined in my report, There is legislative timeframes under the Planning Act for council to make a decision on all Planning Act applications. For a joint official plan amendment and zoning amendment, the timeline is 120 days from the date that the application is deemed complete. In this case, that timeframe was exceeded. I would say to that regard that it's not atypical that applications go beyond the legislative timeframes, especially where they're more complex and there's one or more reports that need to be peer reviewed. It's the peer review process that more often than not is the reason why the legislative timeframes can't be adhered to, because it's a bit of a iterative process. The application is submitted. If we get these reports, we send them out to our agencies like the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority, or in some cases, we have private peer review consulting firms where either Stantec through the county or sometimes the municipality here uses DM Wills. And because there's a bit of back and forth there between the applicant and the peer reviewer, it's easy to go over 120 days. And that's what happened in this case. The final letter came from the township here, from staff on May 21st of 2022, outlining a number of issues to be addressed by the applicant. And we never got a response. Instead of providing a response, the applicant decided to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal instead and have the tribunal make the decision.
Okay, so to put it another way, staff made their very best efforts to deal with this application, to gather all of the necessary information that needed to be gathered, to make sure that it adhered to all of the regulatory regime that was in place. Staff made its very best effort to do that. That took it beyond the 120 days, which, as you point out, is not unusual, and that's what triggered the appeal. But staff were making their very best effort to get all of this application done in as timely a manner as they could, and in trying to ensure that it adhered to all of the regulatory regimes that have been established.
I'd agree wholly with that statement. There was no effort on staff's behalf or council as you hadn't appeared. There was no public meeting, so there was no opportunity for council to hear this application to begin with, but it was staff effort to try and get to a council decision as expediently as possible following the process.
Okay, thanks for that. I think it's important to have that clarification. Will this, once the order is issued, does that then have to come back to council, or is that just the order is issued and that's that?
My understanding is it's final once we get the final order.
Okay, and there's a site plan, but under the new rules, that site plan is delegated to staff for approval. It doesn't come to council if it's after July the 1st, if my memory serves me correctly.
Through your worship, that is correct. The likelihood of the application being received by the township prior to July 1st is almost impossible at this point. After the OLT zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment is complete, then the applicant would have to go through the pre-consultation period. And there's just not enough time for that to happen and for them to get a complete application submitted to the township prior to July 1st.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, we had item 6A1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to staff. This is regarding the speed concerns on Strickland Street. I like the information that you put in your recommendation there with regards to the providing the person with information. And also I would request there's another resident in that area that is that regularly I guess corresponds with us with regards to speeding on Strickland Street. So if this similar type or same information can also be passed on to her, that would be great. Thank you.
Right, and when talking to both residents, I think to explain some of the limitations and challenges in terms of traffic calming measures because of concerns with winter control and other concerns would be helpful as well, I think. Okay, I then need a motion to receive all of the consent items. Anita and Donna, all those in favor? Thank you. We have no petitions. We will then go on to portfolio updates. Donna?
Thank you. My first one here is library, and I would have given council an update, but we had to cancel our meeting today because of member internet issues. So we'll be having our meeting next Tuesday, May the 31st. And the link stats, this time I got the monthly average for January, February, March, and April. They didn't just give May numbers. So this is average, not specific total. So Route 31, the average was 65 ridership for those 4 months. And Route 32, the average was 35, and the total combined average was 100. For the Police Services Board, tomorrow morning at 9:30, they will be starting the interview process for the new detachment commander. And they wanted all chairs of Police Services Board to be on that committee. And the chair or the vice chair is not available tomorrow, so I will be sitting.
I have a question of Donna. Was the link running today?
I'm pretty sure I saw it.
Yeah, I saw it go
okay.
by.
Okay. I saw people waiting at bus stops, so it's good. Okay, thank you. I really don't have much to report. I'm sure we all feel for our business owners that not only having gone through COVID, but one of the busiest weekends of the summer ended up having this this weather event and having to close. So one step forward, 2 steps back, it seems, for some of them. And then on the other hand, in Bridge North, it was crazy. They were really over busy. So, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry?
Public Works, we all know. So street cleaning will be delayed. So if you get any calls, direct them to me. I mean, these people are so antsy to get it done. They've got to understand. I already had one today, not fully comprehending exactly what happened. So they're out busy doing that stuff. The Lakefield Arena and Marina are back on. Marina open Friday, which is at Ennismore Paul Diamond and Paul J. English Diamond, their light pole, and a tree snapped on each. The trails have been cleaned up and they're good to go. And we hope to have the Ennismore Arena up tomorrow or Thursday. And shout out to all the emergency personnel who did have to navigate that lake for Bridge North traffic on the weekend. I have never in my life seen that. They were backed up from downtown past Selwyn Road up the hill. It was absolutely ridiculous. The stores are cleaned out. There's nothing left. If you want milk, go to the convenience store and you just get the little guys. That's it. That's all. Ran out of gas twice. You know, and it's funny, you know, people hit the panic button. You know, they didn't ration gas for some reason, you know, give everybody 20 or 30 liters. That's what you need. People are filling up their cars and then driving around Selwyn looking at all the damage. And, you know, I had it out with one guy on our street there, and it didn't go well, but, you know, we had a conversation. So, you know, these people just don't get it, you know. I mean, these are people's homes. These are people's lives. And these guys just want to go there and gawk, you know, the rubberneckers on an accident. So as far as I'm concerned, they're pieces of garbage.
Anita?
Why don't you tell us how you really feel? Our Heritage Committee meeting is postponed. We were to have it on Thursday night. Our Accessibility Advisory Committee has been postponed. We were to have that tomorrow afternoon. I just want to thank, again, kind of reiterate what everybody else has been saying. Emergency personnel, first responders, hydro, public works, neighbors helping neighbors. Everybody's awesome.
Thank you, Anita. Very briefly on the public health COVID front, the risk profile was lowered from high risk to moderate last week, reflecting a decrease in the cases being detected in wastewater surveillance. COVID continues to be there, but we've been seeing a decline, which is a positive thing. On the county, we had our formal public meeting for the official plan last week. There was a number of people who made presentations to that, and county staff are taking that, and we'll come back to county council in June. And the idea is to try to get a document done by the end of June. So that's still the deadline that's been put forward by the province. I should just mention, we heard from Orca today that Warsaw Caves is going to be closed for a while as they clean up the storm damage there. That's my report, other than to continue to reiterate our thanks to our community and our staff for the work that they're doing through this recovery phase.
If I could, with regards to the COVID numbers for the health unit, can you get the numbers for our Lakefield treatment plant? Do they test that? And
It's on the website.
it is, okay. What about the opioids? Can they test that as well? Do they not?
I don't believe they do.
No.
Okay. I can get back to you and see if they do, but I don't believe they do.
In our community. No.
I'll have to get back to you on that, Jerry. But they definitely do on the waste for the COVID surveillance. Okay, anything else? Colleagues? Okay, we will go to other or other new and unfinished business is AMO delegation. So do we have people going to AMO? You're going to AMO? You're going to AMO? Donna, are you going? No? Jerry? Yeah. Okay, I am going. So do we want to do any delegations? We can do long term. Yeah. I think we probably want to ask on the housing, because I would have, depending on how June the 2nd goes, the current government has indicated that they're going to come back with additional legislation. We had, was it Bill 106? Am I getting the number right? Which did a number of recommendations from that task force, and they've indicated that's only the first phase. So by the time we have AMO, they may have put forward their second phase, and we may want to comment on that. We can always stand down if it's not ready. So that would be the second request, I think. So we have those two that we can put in.
Sorry, so the long-term care and then affordable housing as it relates to Bill 106 implications?
Well,
Sorry.
Bill 106 or any additional legislation that may come forward based on the task force report that the government did. It's a little bit vague because the future is a little bit uncertain.
So if you want, we could just have a motion for that.
Do we have a
Mr.
motion for those two, Donna and Nita? All those in favor? Carry. Okay, and we need to formally, I think we've done this informally, but we formally need to establish the asset management meeting that Lane referred to on June 15th at 3:30. Sherry, second by Anita, all those in favor? Okay, we are on. And then we have some bylaws. We have
Oh,
the-
sorry, one other thing. Sorry, I was hopeful we could schedule another special meeting. This would be for the Marina expansion study. So we were thinking that we would try to do something prior to the July 12th regular meeting, maybe at 3:30, if that works for everybody. Yes, yeah, yeah. Just, you're already going to be here. We would bring some food in for you. We think it might be, like an hour-ish, depending on how many questions council might have, but there would be a presentation. Monteith Brown would be here to do a presentation of their findings, get some feedback from council, and then we would have the council meeting at 5. Does that date work for everybody?
It works for me.
Great. Oh, sorry, 3:30.
Donna?
I have the council meeting at 6 on that day. Am I incorrect?
Committee of Adjustment. is
We
at
would
5.
have committee of adjustment at 5 potentially, depending on how many applications there are too.
Okay.
Yeah, since we only have the one meeting in July, the Committee of Adjustment is in the first meeting because it's the only meeting.
Okay,
Yeah,
if
I
we could
think
just get
everybody said that's
a,
good. So I
yep.
need a motion from Anita, seconded by Donna. All those in favor? July 12th at 3:30.
3:30. We'll send out a meeting request for you. Yeah.
Okay, and then at 5, we have Committee of Adjustment, if that's necessary, and probably will be, and then 6 is council. Okay, is that anything else under new business? Not seeing any. We have some bylaws, the amending tariff of fees, the amending bylaw 2013-83, the tourist and trailer camp fees, and 2248, which is the bylaw to appoint Howard Jenkinson, our deputy fire chief. By Donna, second by Anita, all those in favor, confirming bylaw from Sherry, seconded by Jerry, all in favor, and adjournment by Jerry, seconded by Anita, all those in favor. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you, staff. Thank you to the public. Have a good evening, everybody.